Hello, I think I'm live now, maybe? Let's see. Bear with me a second, I'm just fiddling with various links in various places. That will do. There. No, that's not the link I want to put in there. That one, there we go. Right. Well, hello to those of you who turned up so far. Let's keep going with this southeastern diagram 1328, this one is. So, last week we got through the main process of creating a Wagon body. Did all the planking internally and externally, buffers, which was a bit of a faff, but we got there in the end, and did some of the riveting on the corners as well. So, since last week, there has been someone on my RM web thread pointed out that these rivets don't quite line up properly with the individual planks. So I'm just going to go back and have a quick look at that now in the diagram. And of course, they are right. So, top ones need to go up very, very slightly, and the bottom ones need to come down very slightly. So, one of the useful features of Fusion 360 is if you click on a thing, I think I started with this corner. So if you click on a thing and have a look down here, it tells you where that thing is. Hopefully. This doesn't appear to be playing. There we go. So these three dashes here, you can see, it's highlighting the thing that is a part of. So that's a mirror. So I don't want that one, I don't want that one, I don't want that one. I probably want this one. So it works the other way around as well. If you click on a thing down here at the bottom, it should, hopefully, highlight it in the model, which it isn't currently doing. That's nice. There we go. So if you see, if I hover over this sketch down here, it's bringing up those 2 points there. That is what I want to edit. So this bottom one wants to come down a fraction. Let's just put some slightly random numbers in here for now. Let's go for 0.75. I should always stick to my own rules of 0.25mm spaces. Really. So let's see if that's done that. Updated graphics. That's better. Not perfect, but better. So that pattern there, as you can see, I select the thing down here and it shows me where it is. That's useful, especially when you've got a lot of patterns going on. So I want to reduce that distance very slightly, so I can go for 3.75. And let's see where that puts us. I have to do a lot of recalculating for this because it's calculating this side and the mirror and the other mirror over here. That looks much better. That one's pretty much spot on. Those two are pretty much spot on. That one's very close, and those two are pretty much spot on. Let's drop that down a fraction. Let's go 1.5 and 0.5. Let's see what that does. So, part of modelling like this is to get everything accurate as a drawing. But of course, sometimes people get drawings wrong, or in instances like this, your measurements don't quite match up to the real world. So there we go. I think that is a touch better, but I need to make the pattern slightly longer. So back into the pattern. Let's go for 3.85 this time. We're just making tiny adjustments, going back and forth until we get something approximately right. Now, what did I do with my ruler? So D1328. Excellent. Right. So this bottom plank has 2 rivets. This one has 1. This one has 1, and this one has 2, and they will line up properly. Perfect. Let's give that a save. Put some new version number in for me, which is all very nice and lovely. So, what to move on to next? I think let's do some of the strapping on the sides. Yeah, let's go for that. Right. That's going to be some more extrusions and more sketches and so on. This is the part where CAD gets a little tedious, but it all has to be done. So, actually, let's have a quick look on that diagram. So these straps on the sides all seem to have rounded ends, which means we can't just use a normal rectangle, we have to do something a little bit more creative. Let's cut a circle out, centre diameter, or just press C. Now, the thickness we want on those straps is 0.75 millimeters. So we can do that. Hit C again. 0.75, doesn't matter where I'm putting these for now, I can put them anywhere really. Let's draw a line, connect those up. That looks like it's pulled the tangent tool out for me, which is good. That's pulled the tangent tool out for me again. And I want to use the tangent tool again on the last 2 sides here. Now we have a nice oval shape. And now we're going to make that parallel to something that should be parallel to. Good. Let's dimension that off the bottom there. Let's call that 0.5 millimeter. Dimension that off the top. Let's call that 1.75 millimeters. That from the end is 11 millimeters. There we go. Job done. Extrude. Let's pick that, that, and that. And extrude by 2.25 millimeters. Now that's not really what I wanted to do. Because we've cut these planking lines in here, it's going to create gaps behind this section, which could cause issues for printing, but also makes the export mesh a little bit more complicated. So I'm going to try and avoid that if I can, by picking a symmetric extrusion, keeping the same distance both sides, and a join operation. So you can see now, if we zoom right in here, this is filled in, so the structure should stay pretty stable. Let's break for a quick drink. Oh, hello, Killian's turned up. How are you this evening? Rather a good wagon, wouldn't mind having a few. Well, you might be able to have a few after I've done this, we'll see how it goes. Next point, add rivets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Equally spaced and central to the end. So, create Create another sketch. Another useful tool in Fusion 360 if you're creating something with a circle. Let's zoom right in so you can see this. I don't know how well this is going to show up because it's not that visible. But you can see at the moment my cursor has a little blue square around it, which is just a generic point. It's snapping to a 1mm grid at the moment. If I move on to the edge of something, it goes to a blue cross, which means it's now snapped to that point. And there are various other points, like here, it goes to a blue square again. That's the intersection between this straight line and the curve. Or if you go to the middle of a circular thing, it turns into this blue circle. So that is the point I want to start at. And I'm going to go for a standard 0.4mm rivet. Extrude that, 0.2, blah, round it, 0.2, good. Pattern. Again, I'm using a feature pattern rather than faces. That's more or less personal preference, really. And extent. So we want 5 of them. And let's say 20mm. That's quite a bit too high. I need to line that last one up with this point here. So let's drop that down to 16. Nope. 11, 10. So that line is 10.75mm. So there we go, let's do that. That's looking all fine and dandy. Right. Okay, that's one of those. And there's an identical one at the other end, of course there is. So let's get the mirror tool back out. Pick features. Let's see, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. I want to mirror that in the central plane there. Done. So let's go for the central strap, I think, first. Pretty much the same thing again, just in the middle. And unfortunately this one's slightly shorter, so I can't just use the pattern trick and put 3 of them in here. So you can see, well, you might not be able to see, but when you're drawing a line here, you have the normal blue cross snap to line thing. If you come near the edge of the circle here, it will switch to the circle with the line next to it, indicating tangent, and it puts the tangent relationship in here as well. But obviously it's only done that for the points at the ends where it's snapped to. It's not done that at the start, so we need to do that manually for the start there and fill in there, which is over constraint apparently. Okay, I think it might have done that as I started. Yep, okay, that's fine. Parallel again, let's make it parallel to that. And get the dimension tool out. So that top one is 1.75. And the bottom one is 1.5-ish. There we go. Looks about right. Yes, I need to dimension it to the middle as well. And because I started all the way back last week, if you can remember that far, with the centre of the base in line with the centre of the origin, I can just dimension this to the origin. And again, I'm going to pick that distance divided by 2. There we go. Let's extrude all that stuff again. 0.25. Do some more sketching and extruding. Let's start at the top this time for no good reason really. That will do. Extrude that by 0.2 and around that by 0.2. Get the pan tool out again. Pick that and that in this direction. And this time there are 4 equally spaced. So let's pick 4 and it's going to start going down, isn't it? So let's say let's call that 8 millimeters. 9 and so 5 I reckon. That's a little bit short. That's about right. So I probably should dimension that properly, but being a little bit lazy today. So that will do. Killian comments about wanting one of the Lady of the Lakes models. Yeah, still working on that. I don't know if you follow Ruston's thread on our RemWeb, but he's currently building the first prototype of that. He's built a set of frames for it. So he's done the chassis, I've done the body. So I think the build of that will be going up on his thread first if you want to keep an eye on that one. Right, now let's do the main strapping. Do I want to do that now or do I want to mirror that first? Let's mirror that first. Okay, so I have a decision at this point. I could do the main strapping for the door in here, or I can mirror these 3 things onto the opposite side first, or I could do the mirror after the door. I'm going to do the mirror now because A, it means I don't have to backtrack too far into the timeline down here when I want to find the things I'm mirroring, and B, it means if I come back and change any of this, it has to calculate a relatively small number of things in the mirror, whereas if I wait until I've got absolutely everything included, it's going to have to do a whole lot of recalculation, which has crashed my laptop in the past. So for now, I'm going to pick up on that one there. So I want that, and that. And they all get mirrored in that plane there. Job done. Right, now let's do the door. Right. Now, door strapping, let's go back and have a look at the diagram first. See, what I should have done, if I was clever, is scan this diagram in, scan a few of the photos in so I could show you what I'm actually looking at while I'm doing this. But, well, I'm not particularly clever because I haven't done that. So you just have to imagine it yourself. So this door strapping is square. The outside parts start just above the floor panel. And the bottom parts go down to the hinge. So let's do the outside ones first. Let's start with the rectangle. Drop that in there, random size for now, because we then dimension it later. I haven't actually measured that, that might be bigger than 0.75. It is bigger than 0.75. 1. The bit of strapping is 11.5mm tall. Starts just above. Here we go. Here's another little trick. So, if I dimension this, I want this line to be just above this line here. So if I do this, and I dimension this here, that will look straight in the sketch. Shut up. No, it won't. There we go. So if I do this, I want it to be about 5mm above. So if I do that, fine, if I go to this side. If I put it to the other side, see it doesn't want to put in a negative measurement. So the way of getting around that is to pick a point while it's still blue, and just click and drag, and just move the shape around until it's on the right side in roughly the right place. Then you can go back to your dimension tool, hit the bits you want, put it at 0.25 above there, and it'll let you put it where you want it. Bit of a faff, but I don't really see any better way of doing it at the moment, so that's the way it has to be. Let's measure that distance, which is really hard to read. That's 15, 16, let's call that 17mm between the two door straps. I'm going to call that 17mm. There we go. That looks a tad too long according to the pictures, but not according to the drawing. Let's just nip a tad off the top of that. There we go. So that will do nicely. What am I doing? Right. Extrusion. That and that. 125. I think I forgot to do the trick. Yes, I did. Symmetric 125. And there we go, it fills in that hole again. I didn't do it for that middle one either, did I? That one, which again, use this trick, click on the face of the item you extruded, and it'll show you with these three little lines here where it is. So let's edit that. Symmetric. Job done, recalculates. So that's probably riveted out, isn't it, as well? Yes, it is. How many have we got on there? 1, 2, 3, 4, all central to the planks they're on. That kind of makes things easy-ish. Can't see that in the photos, it's a little bit too dark. So let's trust that drawing. Dimension that to be in the middle of this plank, which I think was 3mm tall, which means I don't want that dimension. It means I want that dimension to the middle there, and it is already bang in the middle. Perfect. I'm forgetting the nobly lines rule because I haven't dimensioned it this way. There we go. Let's finish that. Wait for my laptop to catch up. Extrude. Round. Again. And then we want to pattern that upwards. Again, let's click those two, take that pattern, there are 4 of them, and the distance between planks is 3 millimeters, I think, so that must be 9. Quick basic maths. Do the 4 planks and you want the centres between 4 of them, so you have to times the plank distance by 3 because there's half plank missing there and half plank missing there. Simple maths, there we go. That's that. Have a quick save in. And I want to do the main hinge next, I reckon. Let's stop for another quick drink break. Okie doke. Right. Keep sketching. Let's do another rectangle. I'm just going to put it somewhere arbitrary at the moment. And then start dimensioning. So that is going to be 1. I should probably check these before I say these things. That is going to be 1. Is it? Yes. Yes, it is. Let's have another quick look at that photo. So these stop just shy of the others. So let's put that in as 0.5. Actually, that's about a quarter of the way down the plank on the photo. And the plank is 3 millimeters, so let's put 4. That's now wrong. What I meant to do was that. 3.4, which actually probably was where that was anyway. Never mind. This goes right down to the bottom, I think. No, it doesn't. Oh wait, yes it does. That's a different diagram. Always look at the right diagram, it does tend to help. Let's cancel that dimension and make that collinear. Never use a dimension where you don't have to. And find the gap between those 2 planks, which is just under 1 millimeter. So let's call that 0.75. Extrude by 0.25, and don't forget to make it symmetric. And that certainly wants riveting as well, doesn't it? Yes, it does. And again, we have a nice complicated part this time around. Oh, goody. Okay. This time, because it's not a very nice pattern, I'm simply just going to do it manually. So I'm going to put a guideline in here that I know is halfway across the width. Let's start that at 0.5. Not that one. Let's just move that up there a little bit. Dimension that here. 0.5. Dimension that off the top there, which is probably 0.25. Let's call that 0.4. The rivets in here are going to be slightly bigger than scale, so just have to increase that dimension a little bit to make sure that it isn't actually going off the edge of the part. So center 0.4, lots of circles, 4. That's 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's put that one here. Oi, I dimensioned you. Oh well, I'll come back and sort that out in a sec. And one at the end here, 0.4. Dimension, that's 0.4, that's 0.4. This one, I'll just come down to the bottom blank, and can then be dimensioned here by the same as this here. This one wants to be in the middle of the plank, so I have to put the middle of the plank in the line there. 1.5 because the plank's 3mm wide. Same story with this one. And this one wants to be on from that gap by the same as that. There. So there we go. I couldn't have patterned that at all. This dimension is different to this one, which is different to this one, which is different to this one, which is different to that one. It would take me ages to get that right. So sometimes it is just easier to do it by hand. And we have to remember, because we've got a line in the middle, you have to pick both sides. I could go back and edit this line down here to make it a construction line, and then presumably this wouldn't happen, but to be honest it's just quicker to click on all the boxes and extrude those by 0.2. Simple. And round these by 0.2. Right. Cool. See, I picked the wrong edge there, haven't I? That is not what a rivet looks like. That is cut in, isn't it? I'm not doing very well tonight. So, at least I'm doing this accidentally, but at least it's giving me a good opportunity to fix things. So if we pick our selection here, hopefully the opposite of select in Fusion 360 is to press Control. So if I do that, you can see it shows you the edges you picked. So I want to Control click that one to get rid of it. And then I want to select the edge again, but it won't let me do that. So I can add another one here, another round, under the same sort of process. Give it the same number, and it should be fine. Now that is also obviously wrong. So I want to edit that and make it a join rather than a cut. Bam. This sketch now has no profile plane because the cut was inside and is now outside. So fortunately it tells you when things are wrong. This sketch is yellow because it's non-fatal error. This one is fatal error because there's nothing there for it to round. So let's go back to my sketch plane, redefine the sketch plane here, and then you can pick the right one. And hopefully it migrates everything back to that surface, which it does rather nicely. It keeps all our measurements as well and dimensioning and all that sort of stuff. So that's how to fix errors in a hurry. And now we have the outside strap and the door strap there. So let's put the bottom hinge in down here. So I'm going to put a circle in this plane here, and go that slightly so I can see what I'm doing. Yes, let's not do that. Okay, so I've just picked an arbitrary point to start a circle, like that. Let's see what that says on the diagram. Let's call that 0.75 millimeters. And then we'll dimension it fairly close to that so that this section in here is well inside. So let's say let's go for 0.2 for no particular reason really. So I want that to be just above the bottom there. So that needs to go up a little bit. That looks about right to me. Let's finish that. Extrude just this bit. I don't need to pick that bit. Turn it around. This is where a mouse comes in handy rather than a touchscreen. Pick the right edge, draw the two up. There we go, now we have an edge at the bottom. Last couple of bits to add. Sort of locking mechanism for the top. So we have sort of D shape that comes out from here. So let's create a sketch in this plane. Put a circle in. Measure that up, that's about 1.5 mil. Drop that dimension in there, which is about 1 mil. No, it isn't. Measure that properly. Should be about there. Let's dimension that off the top, which is about 2 mil. So there. Am I looking at this right? I'm not looking at this right. Okay, I think I've done those rivets slightly wrong. And they should all be very slightly higher up than that. Okay, so I've done this in the right place. I'll go back and correct those rivets later. Let's pick that point there. Join out to there. That point there. Join out to there. Tangent both of those onto the circle. Make them parallel. They already put the perpendicular relationship in there for me, which was very nice of it. Finish that. Extrude that and that. Let's go two-sided, I think. So two-sided, extent 1, we want to run out to there so there's no gap behind. And we want to make that join rather than the cut. Now side 2, we'll keep it a distance and we'll make it 0.25. That's this side for fun. There we go. 0.25. 0.25. Thank you. Right. There we go. And I just want to knock that edge down so it looks like one part, which we do with the chamfer tool here. Let's pick that edge. Don't want equal distances, we want two distances. that way. Let's put in 1 mil. See where that goes to. Distance 2, we want to be 0.25 because we just extruded it by 0.25. That distance I think needs to be shorter, or somewhere in the middle. 0.75. There we go. So of course in the real thing, this would be a part coming out at an angle like this and then flat. So there wouldn't be any section behind here. On model we can get away with adding that in because it's going to make it much easier to print than having a very thin slice out here. So that will do for our lock at the top. Now I said I've got these rivets around, didn't I? So let's pick that, which is part of pattern. Edit that pattern, and it needs to go slightly further up, just until that rivet is clear at the top like that. Let's have another drink and catch up on the chat. Evening Javier. Hope things are going well for you. Incidentally, if anyone has suggestions so I can make this a more useful stream, or more suggestions on how I should be doing the CAD, not how I'm actually doing the CAD, and so on, do let me know. It might take me a while to catch up in the chat because I haven't figured out how to get it up on my screen yet. But once I do figure that out, I will eventually respond. Okay, so we have our strap, hinge, locking thingy. Let's put a little thing on here to represent the lock latch. This is just going to be almost entirely randomly dimensioned, really. But bear in mind this is in 00 gauge, so you're really not going to be able to see this, other than the fact that it's there. Let's call that 0.25, and we want to call that 0.5. Nope. 0.35. Again, just doing some quick mental maths there. Shift that out a tiny bit further, that'll do. And make that into a very small block. There we go. Might not look great from this sort of angle, but once you've got it in 00 scale, you'll be able to notice it, but you won't notice how crude it is. Therefore, that will do. Right. Quick question for the chat before I get onto it. Do I need another sort of vertical cut line in here to represent the edge of the door, or not? Do you think people will notice that in scale? So I think I'm definitely going to put a notch in here, this way. So I'll do that while you're deciding whether I need a line down here to represent the edge of the door. So let's make a sketch in there. Just doing this in exactly the same way as I did the stop it. Doing this in the same way as I did the flanking for the sides. So I want to make those two equal, I want to make those two equal. Why did you swap that? I don't know. Dimension that as, I think I did it as 0.2, didn't I? I can't even remember that. that I want to be this distance over 2, which I think was 0.75, so let's go 0.75 over 2. Finish that. Extrude that, and I want to cut 2 space here. Job done. Right. Gary says he would notice the vertical cuts. Well, of course he would, because I told you about it. Did you notice it on the open A that I did? That you've got? Alright, I'll put that in then. Let's put it in this face. Yeah. Now, I've got somewhere I can line up off here. No, I haven't, because it won't let me snap to that point. So I want one there. Let's put that sort of there-ish so it doesn't get upset. That's equal to that, that's equal to that. And this has run away, so I want to make that constant to that, which it doesn't want to do. Where you can fail to solve. Okay, let's do exactly the same thing in a slightly different way. That doesn't want to solve either. Let's try exactly the same thing in a third way. That doesn't want to solve either. This is a mighty infuriating. Okay, I'll put that on there. We can put it on there. Certainly. That'll do. Right. Dimension that line 0.2. Finish. Extrude that. Now this is going to make bins with the tool. Let's see if it extrude to that. Yes, it will. Lovely. There we go. Job done. Straight away you want to mirror that feature in a plane halfway between this one and that one, which I didn't think about. Okay, I'm going to have to create that. So let's create an offset plane with this thing here. Loads of different planes you can choose, and I'm going to use offset from here, and I want it to be half a meter in the opposite direction, so that's minus 0.5. Go back to the mirror tool, pick that to cut in without a mirror plane, hit enter, and there we go, we have a door cut out on that side as well. And so let's turn that thing off so it doesn't get in the way. Right, that's all that gubbin's done. So let's get the mirror tool out again and try and remember how far back we need to go. That's that round, I did that first, didn't I? That's that round. I think we want to start there. Yes, we want to start here. So that one, 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 and that one. And if anyone wants to remix that, I suggest you don't. Mirror in that plane there. This looks like it might not like it. Let's see. Failed to solve. Goody. Now I get to decide why my mirrors don't work. This may just be a case that I don't have enough processing power for this. Let's pick all of those again. And that. And that one. Compute option identical. No, it does not like that. So what it probably doesn't like is the rounds. Yes, fillet chamfer. So let's mirror everything. Probably doesn't like that chamfer actually, is what it is. So let's pick everything except that chamfer. That mirror plane. Is it happy? Think about it. Yes, it's done it. So for some reason it does not like that chamfer. So what we're going to do is just put it back 0.25. There we go. So that's that. Got our vertical cut line in there. Got our notches at the top and got the door at the back there. Good. And we get to do all of that all over again. But I've already mirrored these bits, so I don't have to go all the way back and find those. I think it's that one, that, etc. etc. Avoid the chamfer, that one, and avoid the chamfer. Chamfer's always give me trouble when mirroring, so I don't really know what that's about. If anyone knows, please do let me know. Just a quick gander at the chat there. Gary has finally found his first complaint about the OpenA. That's good news, I suppose. To be fair, I think I did actually put it on, but the planking lines on that I think I set as 0.1 millimeters. So that's really too small for the resolution of the printer to pick up. Hence why I'm going for 0.2, which looks a bit crude here, but I think once scaled down it will look much better. I need to chamfer these, don't I? So I want that edge, 0.25, and 0.25, 0.25. No, that's doing it wrong, so let's ignore that. Start again, pick that edge, 0.75, 0.25, chamfer again, 0.25, 0.75. There we go. Right, so quick look at the chat. I'm still caught up. And we are very nearly an hour in and done that side detailing there. Which doesn't seem like that much for an hour's work, but like, I don't know, maybe it's just me being slow today. Although it is a fairly complicated part. So now, I think we need to do the same thing for the ends. Fortunately, the detailing here is a little bit simpler, so if I go and look at the photos again, the strapping on the ends is metal rather than, is wood rather than metal. So it should be fairly simple to draw, really. It's just a big wooden block. It goes right the way down to the bottom of the butterbean. Yes, it does. Okay. So let's sketch on this end. Pick a rectangle. Draw arbitrary size. Like that. And that detailing there is just over 1 minute. Let's call that 5. That distance there is 19. 18. And this distance here is, I can line myself up, is 12.5. So 12.502. What I'm doing here is measuring from the outside of this one here on the diagram to the outside of this one, rather than trying to sort of guess where the middle is, and then just dividing that distance by 2 because I know they're symmetric. There we go. Extrude that by, let's go for 1mm this time, and symmetric again. It's by default turned into a cut, so let's make it into a join. And there we go, we have our big wooden block on the end. That does intrude into the middle here. That's the disadvantage of doing it symmetric. Let's have a look at the photo as well. That doesn't actually extrude that far, that strapping, which is good news for me. Actually, it's not. There's a bit of a taper on it. What are we going to do about that? Okay, let's call that 1.5mm, and we're going to have to make this two-sided. So direction 1 is going to be 1.25 because that's the distance. That should be plenty to get it through the strapping. And side 1, let's pick that. We want that distance to be 1.5. And it doesn't like that. I do not like that. 1.5 please. What are you doing? Computer? 1.5. Distance 1.25. That is that. That is that. Why are you going away? Okay, this is a bug I've not come across before. Two sides. 1.5. Yes. Make the other part side 0.25. That side 0.25. Check, check, join, join. And doesn't want to do it. Well, let's go back to Old Faithful, delete it and start again. Let's turn the sketch back on. Extrude. That and that. Two sides. 1.5mm. 1.25mm. Okay, that was just my computer being weird. Then let's get it back off. Does that have a little bit of it? Yes, it does. Ah, that's what that is. That's why it looks like taper. Okay. This does not taper. It has a metal block at the bottom, so I'm going to rise that down to 1mm. Okay. Put some rivets in there. That's good because it means I don't have to use a chamfer, and then I can mirror it properly without having to redo lots of stuff later on. 0.4. Are they nice and equally spaced? No, they aren't. Probably well, the top ones are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2.1mm spacing. Let's call that 4. Distance from the bottom is 10.5. Two round 2 pattern that and that. I didn't want to do that, but it's okay, I can pick that direction instead. There are 4 of them with 2.5mm spacing, which means 2.5 times 4 minus 1, which is 5, only in the one direction. Clearly it's not 7.5 unless it let me down. That's the job. That bottom was not quite high enough up, so I'll bump that up by 0.5mm. There we go, should be in the middle of this plank here. Good. 67.5, 6.75 please. Or maybe just 7. 7, there we go. Yep, so I look at the diagram. This one has one in the middle of the plank, this one has one slightly lower than the middle, and this one has 2. Good. Not sketching because we have a metal thingy at the bottom here. 1.75, dimension that the edge should be 0.252, which isn't. No, it's 1.92, isn't it? That would then be 0.452, put it in the centre. We have a gap at the bottom of 0.75 and the total length of that section is 8. So 0.75 and 8. Should take it somewhere below that, which it does. Extrude that. Let's have a quick look. Gary likes a fact, but since I'm looking at this chat with a bit of a delay, because I don't have any indication of when messages come up, so yeah, so I don't know what that fact was, but I'm glad it was good for you, Gary. Let's put the rivets on here. One day I will not have to draw a rivet, and that day will be a good day. 1, 2, 3, 4, again not equally spaced. Lovely. So let's do the same thing we did earlier. And just put the rivets in by hand. I say by hand, I'm still using the computer, if that counts. So let's put that in there at 0.25. That should be in the centre of this plank, which would be 0.75. Yeah. That should be in the centre of this plank, which isn't a plank, and that's now an angle. Cancel. Let's make that 0.75. Check dimensions again. 0.75. Wait for the computer to catch up. Which means also then that to be finish. Extrude. That. 5.2. That, and that, 5.2. Okay. That. Is our unstrapping done? Yep, that looks pretty done to me. Goody, time for the mirror tool again, as usual. Mirror tool never gets tired. That, and that. That way. Same again. Like that. Oh, my heater started up, so you probably can't hear me. I can't turn that off. Sorry, man. Okay. Heater's off, so hopefully you can still hear me. Over the fan. I'm not enjoying doing loads of CAD work. It will do it. So we've mirrored those in that plane, and we've mirrored those in that plane. Give it a quick save. Okay. Well, this is looking rather like we might be nearly finished with the body. So here again we look into the issues with 3D printing. My laptop is now sounding like it wants to take off. I'll move that around so we get a little bit more air to it. So, yes, going back to the issues with 3D printing, there are a few more details in the body, but I don't think I'm going to draw them. So the main ones are bits of chain around here. There is no way I'm drawing a chain. And the other main bits are lampines on the back. Well, on both sides actually. Because these are express rated wagons, or at least they were in 1887. So they would need to have lampines on. I'm not going to draw those because any attempt at those is just going to look very clumsy and overscale. So I'm probably going to do for this wagon what I normally do for locomotives, which is just bend up a bit of staple or old wire or something to represent it. And that is a 5-minute job, and it'll do a much better representation of the actual lampine scale. So, given that I think we're done with this, shall we move on to the chassis? I think we might have to. Gary says I would leave the chain off. Yeah, completely agree with that. One, it's never going to print to scale, and two, it would take me years to draw that properly. So I'm simply not going to bother. Now, obviously the chassis is next. We have a couple of choices here. So I've previously made 2 wagon models. One of the LB-SCR diagram something or other open A, and one of an SCR 2-plank fast wagon. They have slightly different chassis styles. So if we look at the chassis like this, the open A has the sides here printed separately. So you get a body, a left-hand side and a right-hand side, each of which has the wheel bearings in, and you put together separately. The ballast wagon has the sides as part of the body, This is going to be quite difficult to describe without actually. Tell you what, SER D1328 assembly, very maturely named assembly. Let's see if that opens up, which it does. Lovely. Right, so here is the two blank ballast wagon. This is the other chassis construction method, which is a wheel block like this. Can I open that? Where's my open? Oh, come on. Not that one, that one. Open. So if it'll open that for me, this is the wheel block here. So we have the side of the body sits in here. This tucks in behind. The spring is integral. The axle bearing sits in here, and this will locate into another one of these units, which is 90 degrees round, like that. So the idea is you assemble these two as a unit with the wheels trapped in the middle, which is what this circular cutout here is for. And then you slide that sort of up into the chassis here, and then forwards until it hits the back of this NEM pocket here. So that means you can assemble your wheel sets externally to the wagon, paint it, make sure everything's alright without putting the wheel set in, and then just sliding that in as the last part. Which I think is slightly easier in terms of construction. Because you don't have to try and hold two wheel sets in at the same time while you glue the other side in, like you would on the Open A. But it is slightly more difficult to model, and I haven't actually managed to get this to work properly yet because of the tolerances between this side and this side once you include a sort of separate part in the middle. So, the other consideration is this is an SER axle box. The wagon I'm making at the moment is an SER axle box. I could do a little bit of cheating here and steal the previous design, but I think that's probably against the idea of this stream, which is to model the wagon from scratch. So I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to model it from scratch. And I'm almost certainly going to regret saying that. So let's get on with it. So, decision time. Do I go for one or the other? You know what, I think I'm going to go back to the Open A style. It's much easier to draw. Yeah, let's go for that. The other one with the SER type, I think it's better in principle, but I need a bit more time to work through it and make sure I get all the tolerance stack up right. Yeah, let's go for that. Okay. Right then. Let's make you a new thingy. New design. Save. SERD is not a 17. D1328. What was that? This is a D1328. And it is a chassis, sidebar, side, something. What shall I call it? Let's call it side. Both sides are the same for this wagon, I think. I need to double check how they are braked. It's drawn with a brake in the diagram, but obviously I can't see whether that's on both sides or not. I think it's just braked on one side. Let's have a look at the photos. They show different sides, don't they? Yes, it is only braked on one side. But the brake will be a separate component, so both sides will be identical. Now, start again. And again, we're going to go with the same kind of concept here. Draw a random size thing, make it coincident to this point here, make the overall length very slightly shorter than it has to be to allow for printing tolerances. I shouldn't be measuring that off the diagram. Let's get rid of this to free up some RAM. I'm just measuring that off here. So I want to measure that point. Sorry, measuring I should probably explain a little bit better. So the shortcut key for a measure is I, and you pick two edges or two faces. In this instance I'm going to pick that face and that face, and it gives you the shortest distance between the two, in this case 53.25 millimeters. Now, I reckon my printer overprints by 0.1, 0.2 millimeters. So this part is going to be overprinted by 0.1 millimeters this way, this part is going to be overprinted by 0.1 millimeters this way, and the side is going to be 0.1 either end as well, which adds up to 0.4. So I want to make this 53.25 minus 0.4. 53.25 minus 0.4. And again, I'm going to center that because we're doing a lot of mirroring here as well. Let's pick that divided by 2. And the sides are just under 2.5 millimeters deep. So let's call that 2.25. Hold on a sec. Yeah, that is right. Okay, that looks a little bit better than it should, but oh well. Let's make that an arbitrary thickness of 2. Yeah, let's go for 2. That should be strong enough. First thing to add in is probably the W irons and the bearing housings. Let's have a look at that. I'm just going back to the photo again quickly. A little bit of conundrum here. Yeah, okay, let's do the W irons first, line them up off the back of the side, and we finish about halfway across, so that the spring still has room to fit in underneath. So, I'm going to pick the sketch off the back there, but I'm going to sketch it off the front here. line it up again, you can use this thing here to line it up to an orthographic view. I can't remember the exact name. Gary at some point in the distant past has said it will be braked on one side only. Yep, that seems to match up with the pictures. So the pictures in the book I've got, there's one of the express type, which I'm drawing, and one of the non-express type. And assuming the braking sort of pattern was the same on both, then it has only got the brake on one side. And Will Powell asks, what program is this? This is Autodesk Fusion 360, which I'm using because it's free, essentially. It's free for hobbyists and small businesses. So as long as you earn less than $70,000 a year, and currently I'm earning nothing off this, yeah, it's free. And can you import a diagram in this, or are you going off measurements? I'm going off measurements. You can import images and diagrams, but I find it a little bit neater to work off measurements, because you have to put measurements in anyway. Otherwise, so you can't locate a point, so say this point, or a line length or something like that, to an image. So you're going to have to put measurements in anyway. And at that point, I find it much easier to measure something off something physical that I've got here than to try and guess where it is, even if I've got an image overlaid, if that makes sense. I don't think it does, but I can't think of a better way to explain it at the moment. So I've got a scale drawing from a book that I'm working from with a couple of photos in it as well. If you want to know how I normally work, in last week's stream, which is still up on YouTube, I think, if you go and have a quick flick through that, I show you one of my data files, which is a scale drawing and a whole load of photos. So that's what I normally work from. I would normally print that off as a hard copy and use that for measurements. And I've almost forgotten what I'm doing. What am I doing? Drawing W lines. Ooh. Okay. Quickly consult the photo again. Right. Okay, again, so the express type and the standard type have very slightly different W lines, so I've got to make sure I'm measuring the ones on the express type. Okay, let's just start sketching and see where it goes. Start off that line, put in a rough shape, the outline. This is quite clever, it does pick up on the parallels there. Let's parallel that. And no, don't want to finish the sketch. Do that. And then we get our nice dimension to that again. So that base there is 5mm, top is 10mm. Crikey. It's almost like they thought about the double O gauge modeler when they built this. So that should be 5. That's gone horribly wrong. That should be 10. This is going to mess it up. Yes, it is. That should be equal to that. That should be equal to that. This dimension here should be 1. That dimension there should be 1.25. That should be 1. should be 0.25. Let's use the clicking and dragging thing to make this make more sense. That should be 1. That 1.25. I can't type. Okay, let's measure that. That should be 8mm, which it is already. That should be the same as that. Which is 1.5. So this is starting to look alright, isn't it? That's fixed, that's fixed, that's fixed. That. Don't get a dimension for here. So I'm going to make it 4mm, I think. 4. So the spring comes along here somewhere, so I want it to be a little bit lower than the top of the spring, if possible. Okay, so that's measured, that's dimensioned, that angle is dimensioned off there, those are equal. Are they equal? That constrains it. How about crash Fusion 360? No, good. And finally, add this dimension. I can't dimension off the end here because I don't know exactly where that point is on the diagram. Because we've allowed a little bit extra dimensioning here for the tolerances of 3D printing, that's no longer a reliable datum point. So you, again, always have your origin as your reliable datum point. So we measure between those 2 points. Which is 17.5. Hang on. That's not 17.5. That is 27.5. Again, over 2 because it's there. Why are these still bullet lines? What have I missed? I think I need to make those equal. No. No, it's already got that. Not sure about that. Oh well. Oh, it might not be this edge. Okay, never mind. Right, sketch done. Extrude 1mm. Now we have a WI, and I've extruded it the wrong way. Good enough for me. Minus 1mm. Goes the right way. There we go. So we need a bit of axle box down here and a spring in here. Let's have a quick look at the chat and carry on. So again, this is another area that we might have to skimp a little bit in detail for. So that has a couple of backing heads. So again, this is the kind of tiny stuff that in AA gauge you're not really going to notice. And I'm going to put it, well, it's under the foot plate as well, so yeah, it's really not going to be that noticeable. So I'm going to put the main details in, but leave out the bits I can't see. because the photos aren't particularly clear on this area either. Okay. So we have a rectangle sort of here-ish. Which is 3.5 by 2.5. It's a couple of mil off the bottom. 0.25. That is 5 minus 3.5 over 2. Let's put the brackets in. Got to remember your bod mass from school. Put that in, extrude that by 125. Okay. And then on top of that, there is the main toolbox, which we're going to represent with another rectangle, not extrude, in that plane again, because it goes slightly below and slightly above this rectangle here. Dimension tool again. Now this is probably going to be a little bit overscale, because it has to fit a double O gauge bearing in it. So that is going to be 2.5. No, it's not. It's going to be 2.75 because I want every bit of space I can get. That is 4 millimeters, I believe. Just under 3.75. And dimension off the bottom is 1. Now there's a little bit of a curve to that base as well. So let's put 3-point arc in by going straight across there and picking up on the centre point. Dimension that there, 0.25, like that. Dimension that there, 0.25, and this is already forgotten about its relationship, so let's put that, not that one, tangent that back onto there, like so. And then we can extrude this, 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 and that. We'll just sort of guess at the distance really. That looks like 1.5 in both directions. So let's put that symmetric. Distance 1. Because then that will come up to the edges. Both of those there, not 1.5. And we want that to join like so. There is also a chamfer on the top of that. 2 distance chamfer again. Let's see, 0.75, 0.5. No, that needs to be a little bit longer. 1, 5, down, 0.75. Let's have that like that. And then it has some detail in the middle, which I can't really see on the photos. with a sort of rounded edge rectangle with a radius. That's going to be a bit awkward to draw. You know what, let's just do it. So, rectangle, second rectangle, dimensional distance between the two to be, let's say, 0.5. 0.5. Cancel, do the click and drag thing. 0.5. 0.5. This is going to be massively overscaled, but it doesn't really matter too much. 0.25. 0.25. 0.25 and 0.25. Funnily enough. Again, you can tell I'm not putting too much emphasis on this being absolutely 100% correct. It's a case of being close enough now. I'm going to fillet these four corners by 0.25, and I'm going to fillet these four corners by slightly more. 0.5 will do. Although technically that should really be more, shouldn't it? That should be 1. 0.75. Yes. Because then that is a radius. That is not a radius. That's the same scale as this, isn't it? So let's finish that. Extrude that by 0.25. Round that edge and that edge by 0.25. There. And then we have an attempt at the feature on that axle box. Remembering that in real life it's probably maybe this big. So good luck spotting that. If I make it any smaller and try and get it to scale, it's not going to come out at all. So I think that will have to do. So let's go and have a quick look at where the axle box needs to go. Let's whack another sketch in. Axle box is a circle with a diameter of something. Now this I can't get off the diagram or anything, I have to actually measure this off a bearing. 2 seconds, I'm going to go and measure this off a bearing. Okay, but before doing CAD, but you can just go and measure random stuff like that. So the bearing I'm using, this wants to be about 2.5 millimeters, and it wants to be at least 2 millimeters deep, preferably 2.5. So I need to measure some other things off the actual diagram first, such as where the centre of the wheel lies. And that is 8mm for the top there. That's a tad low. I need to include compensation for 3D printing in there, so I'm going to put that as 7.75. And that wants to be in the centre of this, which, if we remember, I think is 2.5, isn't it? Or 5 over 2. Again, leaving the dimension in there so I remember what it is. I think that's about right. Okey-dokey. Let's make that a tad smaller. Yeah, I've got a 0.1 to 0.2 overprint on both sides. Let's leave it at 2.25. If people need to, they will be able to drill this back out to 2.5mm at least, or either 2mm or 2.5mm, whatever the exact dimension of that bearing is. So that's now in the right place, that's now in the right place this way, that's now the right depth. And we want to extrude that by minus the depth of the bearing, which was 2.5mm, wasn't it? So we need to double check while we're doing this. This doesn't pop out the other side, which it doesn't, and it leaves a wall thickness of 0.5mm, which is a little bit less than I'd like, but given it's on a fairly small area, I think we'll get away with it in this case. Right, so that's the bearing hole in place. Gary's commenting. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it. I'm sure you could do it, but it's a case of deciding whether you'd enjoy it, really. I don't mind it. Stuff like this isn't that great, but doing an engine is quite fun. It depends whether that's your sort of thing. So, for example, I might be quite good at this, and you might not be, but you might be much better at, well, you are much better at painting and lining and transfers and stuff than I am, so yeah, everyone's got their own bits and pieces that they like to do. Where was I? Making springs. Yes, that's not going to be fun. What should I do with that? Just having a think about what I'm going to do with the springs. In the meantime, there's another little bit I forgot to draw earlier, which is the little weird circly thing at the bottom. So that wants to be dimension A, that's 0.5. That wants to be this plus 2 times the minimum radius of 0.75 plus 0.75 times 2. That's big. Let's call that 0.5 times 2. Okay, what happened there? Oh, times plus. That'd be why it was so big. There we go. Dimension in the centre of that again, that's 2.5. That ideally wants to be a little bit smaller. And that distance from the edge wants to be, this is where we get into maths again. Okay, so this point here wants to be 0.5 below this point here. I should be able to make that work out of that function there. Yeah, that's quite simple actually. So I want that to be that over 2 because it's diameter. Put that in brackets, minus 0.5 there. Sweet. And we want a rectangle in there that is the same distance part as these two are here, which is 0.5. No, it's not. It's 0.75, isn't it? Thought that looked wrong. And that's do for that sketch. A load of black lines. I want that, and that by 0.25. Only I want this to be in 2 sides, otherwise I'm going to end up with a thin slice there. It's not going to print. So I want 0.25 in that direction and 0.5 in that direction, and I want it to join up. So we have this little thing going on at the bottom there. And if you thought you'd seen the last of the rivets, complaints sent to the SER, please. Yep. Not 0.2 round. Okay. So is that looking a bit like a W iron should? It's not too far off, is it? So we need to put a spring in. Yep, I need to put a spring in. I don't want to have to do that, but nevertheless I shall. There are a couple of ways of doing this, one of which involves cheating, which I think I might go for. But I shall cheat off string and try and finish a couple of the other bits first. So, first things first. I didn't want to do that. Stop doing that. Okay. We shall get the mirror tool out again, and of course mirror pretty much everything. That. Again, we've set this up so that the middle plane is the middle plane. That will do nicely. Give that a quick save. And let's measure that line lined up with that line. So let's measure this distance here. That distance is 0.5 millimeters. The distance between... Can anyone remember the distance between bearing faces for a pinpoint axle? I might have to go and look this up. There's a set distance. I don't have to look it up, do I? Because I did an LBSC diagram for 1971. Which also has a very maturely named assembly. And was modelled in the same way, so I can steal dimensions off this. Because I know this worked, because I've made it work and Gary's made it work. So that to there is 24mm. Perfect. So I know that needs to be, I need to include some mounting blocks on the chassis of the 24 plus 0.5 plus 0.5 is the 25. Sorry, I should explain what I'm talking about. So this is the other wagon I've made so far, an LBSCI open A. If I turn the sides off there, you can see, let's line this up nicely, that these locating pins here are where the sides stick on. So you line it up with that. So I need to add these points to the main body so I can drop this chassis in. So that's the main body. Let's make an extrusion in this plane here. Make it a rectangle. Snap to that point. I want that to be, let's say 2 by 2. Let's put the other one in for the other side. 2 by 2. And dimension. So that chassis, those sides, sorry, want to be 25mm apart. So 24mm bearing distance to bearing distance, and the side is 0.5 outwards from the bearing distance. So that wants to be 24 plus 0.5 plus 0.5. And of course, because we were nice and sensible and sent off cell by origin in the middle, we can just say that distance to 2. Extrude that and that to this plane here. Oh, actually, we can measure this, can't we? What's that? That's 3. And the sides are made slightly shorter. Yeah, that's spot on. I've accidentally done that quite well. So we want to mirror that feature in this plane. I've just had a thought. I know that's a bit dangerous, but I've just had a thought. I'm going to make a pattern. Add that in that direction. Distance. I can pattern to an object, can't I? I can't remember how I did this before. So let's pick 2 there. That's going to put it beyond slightly. Let's not pick 2 there, let's pick 2 there. And there are 3, so that'll put a block in the middle as well. So, the benefit of this is that, as I found with the Open A, sides warp over time. You can stick them back straight and they'll stay there. But this adding an extra block in there to give it something to brace against is just going to make that process a little bit easier. The other top CAD modelling tip here is in Fusion 360. When you do a pattern, you can see a little tick box here. So you can turn individual occurrences off of patterns. So I want to turn this one off because there's already a block at that point. So if it will let me turn that off, which it might not, because it's still trying to give me a distance in that direction. Let's click on something else. There we go, let's turn that off. And OK, and now we have that block in the middle as well. So that's just to make things a little bit easier to assemble. Click save. Now we've got time, I think. Yeah, I'm going to keep my mature name. Deal with it. So let's start doing some assembly. Pick the 1328, put the body in. So this is the point where it starts to all come together. I've just hit enter just because I want to keep that in place with the default settings. I'm going to bring this side in here. I'm going to put it up by my arbitrary amount of 50mm, just so that it's not in the same space. Now, assembly in Fusion 360 is not massively intuitive, but you want to use this tool here, which is joint. Now, you can see it produces this little circle that sort of snaps to various places. You want to pick a point, so we're going to pick the middle, making sure the circle is flat, so it's sort of aligning this face here. So we want that point there, which is the back centre of that axle, of that side. Sorry. So we want to pick the equivalent point, which is the back centre of that axle, which is the other reason I put these nubs in here, is because we can pick that point there. It should drag it straight into place for me. So that is now aligned with this here, and should be aligned centrally as well, which it isn't quite. So there's a big gap at this end than there is at this end, which I suspect is because that might not be quite central. Okay, I'm going to OK that joint, but clearly this point here is not quite central, so I need to sort my pattern out. Now, why are you not quite central? So I was picking up off this point here, dropping that in the middle. Save that. In Fusion 360 you have to save a part before any additional parts will come up in it. So now I've saved that, and it hasn't changed, but it has put this little warning sign here and here. So you click this and it'll update all the models you've changed since your last edit. Click that and it should update, and it hasn't. Okay, which is a little strange. So if you click on a part here, it will highlight it in blue for you. So I'm clicking on that there, lining them both up to the front to try and get an idea of where this is actually meeting. So there's a tiny little gap there. Let me scroll down, which you won't. So there's a tiny little gap there. And yeah, we can see this isn't, if this is central, this isn't. So I need to work out how to do that pattern. This is the part where knowing maths comes in handy. And I should know some maths, but I don't. So let's do this the old-fashioned way. Use the inspection tool or measurement tool. I'm going to measure that face to that face there, which is 23.5mm. Now let's measure the other side, that face to that face, which is 23.75. So I need to shift this by 0.25 over 2 that way. Let's close the measurement tool, edit feature, shift that pi plus 0.2502, that one. Which actually it hasn't done, has it? Because that's a pattern over the whole length. Do I want to shift that by 0.5? So a quick visual. That might have gone too far the other way now. I probably should have just drawn these separately rather than try to put them in a pattern. But hindsight is a wonderful thing. That's now 23.5. Okay, maybe I did have it right. $23.75. Yes, I need to shift it back the other way now. I will get there in the end. 0.25. So now 23.675, hopefully. 625, sorry. Okay. Let's see if I haven't managed to mess that one up. Reload. Should shift. Hope the program hasn't crashed. Oh, we have crashed. Hey, we have crashage. It's not gone well. Well, I suppose that's a good point to stop as any. So, the plan for next week is to finish off that side, add the spring, okay, Streamlabs is crashing as well now. This is not going well. So the plan is finish that off, finish that spring, draw the break, and hopefully we can set it up in the 3D printing slicer software as well. And at that point, that will be all the computer side of the model done, I think. So what we will want to do there, so finish off that side, set up 3 parts in the 3D printing software, export all that, and then hopefully the week after that will be a video of the production of the actual model, so how to use the 3D printer, maybe a bit of a time lapse or something I'm feeling fancy, and maybe get a look at the actual print for the first time. So, Streamlabs is still crashing, so I have no idea if you can hear me or not. If you can, good, I suppose. I think I'm still live. I'm having to use the YouTube tools at this point. So, if you have stuck with it this far, thanks. Sorry about the crashiness, and hopefully see you next week. Cheers, bye.